We have trained people to invest in their education. We train people to invest in their homes. We've trained people to invest in their retirement. Yet the single most important thing to all of us, we really haven't trained people how to invest in their health. Everybody's different. I think that's one of the areas that the world has kind of gotten out of whack on healthcare, where a one size fits all just is not the right answer. Once you're sick, I think we have the best healthcare system in the market. Nothing's even close. But we don't really have systems that's set up to help people stay healthy for longer.
Steve, thank you so much for joining the show.
Hey, Wendy, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history and how you got into the health system?
Well, let me start with, I'm a little intimidated to be on the show because you tend to have some pretty badass doctors on the show, and I am not a doctor. I am a geeky engineer by training. Started a company that's pretty young called Mitos. We made the back-end systems that were used to manufacture biological drugs. Didn't know any better as a 23-year-old, so bootstrapped that. Sold that when I was 30 to Parker. So 30 is too young to kind of goof off. I certainly spent a decent amount of time goofing off, don't get me wrong, but started doing adjunct professor work at University of Penn back when Penn was really trying to figure out how to create an entrepreneurial minor to cross collaboration, where you had engineering students, business students, philosophy students, whatever it may be, coming together to start businesses. Pretty quickly realized never was going to make as a professor, just way too theoretical. 95% of the kids were just checking a box, which just drove me insane. And from that, though, those that were passionate about their business and starting an idea, I absolutely love working with them. There's nothing more exciting than a young entrepreneur that's got an idea, got a vision for where the world's going to go. So I got together with a couple other guys, David Bookspin, Mike Levinson. We started a company called Dream It. And the idea behind Dream It was to give entrepreneurs a small amount of money. So we're writing relatively small checks, but a lot of focus, and to try to figure out whether that idea was viable or not. It started truly for altruistic reasons, but about 2 years into it, the capitalist us took over as we realized we're on something really unique. We were really helping these companies get off their ground. So fast forward today, I think Dream has turned out 400 companies. At one point was the second most active healthcare investor in the country. And Restore, which hopefully we'll talk a little bit about today, Restore was really born out of an understanding that the market was going the consumer, I should say, was going a different place in the market. The traditional healthcare system was going in one direction, but the consumer was saying, wait, that's not exactly where I want to go. And my partner and I, Jim, saw a need in the marketplace and did a lot of A/B testing, building out a lot of different models, and then finally found one that we thought was really compelling to the consumer, that we thought most importantly was going to change people's lives, which is really what we were focused on.
Yeah, so tell us what Restore is. What is the marketplace, or it's a place that you can go to experience different health modalities?
Yeah, we have 230 locations and I think about 40 states across the country. So hopefully there's one near most of your listeners. They are really the antithesis of a doctor's office. They're fun, they're educational, they're social, and they're designed to help people deal with and proactively invest in their health. And I think that the reality is, in this country, we have trained people to invest in their education. I'd argue 100% the right thing to do. We should be investing in our education. We train people to invest in their homes. We've trained people to invest in their retirement. Yet the single most important thing to all of us, historically, we really haven't trained people how to invest in their health. And Restore is that place where you can go and invest in your health. We can help you get on a journey. We understand everybody's different. It's customized. I think that's one of the areas that, the world has kind of gotten out of whack on healthcare, where a one size fits all just is not the right answer. And I think the consumer knows that. And once you're sick, I think we have the best healthcare system in the market. Nothing's even close. But we don't really have systems that's set up to help people stay healthy for longer. And really what we're trying to provide as consumers, the tools to stay healthy for longer.
Yes. And so when you go to a Restore, what do you call it?
We call it a studio. Yeah, we don't want to call it a doctor's office. Yeah, it's a studio.
Yeah, so when you go to a Restore studio, what kinds of modalities can people find there for their health?
Yeah, so you'll see everything from heat therapy and cold therapy. So cryotherapy in the sense of cold, saunas in the sense of heat, hydration therapy, which is IVs with different components in those, compression therapy. And then we do have some things that are really focused on the skin health, and then light therapy as well. So, we talk about the 9 elements of hyper wellness. Hyper wellness for us is the consistent and passionate pursuit of your own health. That we have, 9 elements of that. Of those, a lot of them happen outside the studio. So, but what we're trying to do is empower people with the tools that they can use in a studio that is easy to come into, very accessible, very consumer friendly.
Okay, fantastic. And so talk to us about those 9 elements or pillars of health that people need to be tending to.
The human body evolved over a long period of time in a very different environment than it's in today. I mean, our ancestors were trying to survive hunting stuff on the grains of Africa. Everything about your life was different than I'm sitting underneath, fluorescent lights, sitting all day long. What we're trying to do is stimulate the body's natural defenses, the things that, you haven't had, and I should say things that you've had for a very long period of time from an evolutionary standpoint, like making sure you go through those stressors of life, making sure you do things to stress that body, doing things to make sure you're hydrated, doing things to make sure you go through a contrast therapy. I mean, the reality is right now we sit in air conditioning all the time. It's perfect temperature. It feels great. But that's not how we were evolved. We were evolved to kind of have some heartaches and pains in our lives. So we're really trying to help use the body's natural defenses. And a lot of our clients, they start to see, and I think most people certainly by the time they hit 40, they start to have aches and pains they didn't have when they were younger. They start to have inflammation in different ways. We're trying to help people have the tools to overcome those headwinds they're going to face. The reality is the longer you move and continue to do things you love in life, the healthier you're going to be, the longer you're going to be. So we're really trying to empower people with the ability to keep doing the things they love doing longer in life.
Yes. And so what made you kind of like make these health changes yourself? Like tell us about your own health journey and, why you kind of decided to make some changes in your health.
Yeah, I read your background and I know your father's kind of health challenges really stimulated you certainly were involved in health before that, but that really kind of set you over the edge, if you will, and became really passionate and engaged. Mine's a little bit similar too, which is my father, who, if you were to look at when he was 69 years old, looked like a pillar of health. He looked great. I think he was number 7. It's a couple of years earlier, he was number 7 in seniors tennis. He played tennis every day of his life. He went through a process where, he called me one summer in August. He's like, Steve, I'm just getting old. I'm playing tennis one day a week or a couple days a week, and I'm getting tired even when I do that. Called me a couple of weeks later and said, I can't play singles tennis anymore. I'm having to play doubles all the time. Another month later, he called and said, I'm getting winded walking across the house. So, he went to the cardiologist, went one time. They said, Jack, this is what it's like. You're getting old. You can't play tennis every day. You're now 69 years old. You can't play. So he went home and it just got worse. He went back a second time. And it wasn't until the third time he went back and he said, I am not leaving here until you tell me what's wrong with me. This is not normal. This is not just getting old. 2 days later, he had quadruple bypass surgery and had 90% blockage in, I think, 4 out of the 5 arteries. And, in hindsight, the fact that he was in such good shape has probably saved him. But so what happened to him was he did almost everything in life right, except for one really important factor, which is he ate like his entire life. He drank 6 Dr. Peppers a day. He ate McDonald's constantly. And yes, he exercised an enormous amount. But the reality is you can't have one part of your health journey fail so miserably and not have an impact. I looked very healthy when I was 39, 40, but I built a couple businesses. I ate McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts. I drank soda all the time. And you would have looked at me and you just said, I look very healthy. However, I had high cholesterol and an extraordinary, HbA1c that had me pre-diabetic. And it came from, again, similar to him, a terrible diet. Today, I'm a pescatarian. I eat extraordinarily healthy. I never eat fried foods. And if you look today, and there's a lot of reasons for this, not just one, but 7 years ago, I was deficient in a lot of things. I'm no longer deficient in anything. And I have more energy than I did when I was in my late 30s, at my late 40s.
I think people don't realize the kind of results they can get when they start making these changes. And much more so looking at the consequences if you don't make these kinds of changes in your health, because, someone in their 70s, like my father died when he was 68, it's way too young. People really can have amazing health into their hundreds. They really can have a really high quality of life, but you do have to kind of do certain modalities. Now, I think it's not enough just to eat right. I do a lot of different therapies and modalities to kind of like tap into our like biohacking and tap into like to optimizing our body's health, reducing stress and detoxification with infrared saunas, which I talk about a lot on this podcast, is so important. And so talk to us. So getting back to like biohacking and doing things to improve our health. So talk to us about each modality and what are at Restore and what kind of benefits that people can hope to achieve with doing each of those modalities.
Yeah. And Wendy, I think you hit on something that's really important, just to kind of diverge a little bit, which is 60 is too late. Too late to, it's great. You should make changes. I'm not suggesting if you're 60, you should make changes, but if you make those same changes decades earlier, you get the benefit. It's kind of like the compounded interest of money. Like if you invest when you're young, That compounds over time. You get the benefit of it later in life. And I think health is the same way. Unfortunately, don't have, as a society, we haven't done a really good job of educating people on that. And people tend to think, you won't believe the amount of times I hear out, oh, when I retire, I'm going to start exercising more. Yeah, great. That's awesome. But that's too late. It's too late to have a long-term impact. So for us, the different modalities that we built in a story with our therapies, the one that we started with and the one that I probably use the most today is cryotherapy. So I have a lower back that I'm very active. I kiteboard, I surf. Those are my passions in life. Those two things are also pretty hard on the body. And, every now and then I will tweak my lower back. And for me, cryotherapy is amazing. It reduces inflammation. It takes the pain off and allows me to kind of continue to do the things I love to do. What we've learned over the years, and I think where Restore really is quite different than a lot of the people in the spaces, we're doing clinical studies. We have one white paper that was just published, peer-reviewed papers just published. We have a couple more coming that show cryotherapy actually reduces your inflammation biomarkers, not just when you do it, but actually you have a long cycle after you've done it, a couple of times, there's a lasting impact on that. So that reduction of those biomarker, the inflammation really has an impact. What happens to many people, especially get older, is you start to have these headwinds. You get injured more easily. You get tired more easily. That starts this negative feedback loop, which is all of a sudden, well, I'm tired, so I'm not going to play soccer 2 days a week. I can only do it once a week. And you get this negative feedback loop and you get the more risk of injury and things like that. So what we do is we give you a lot of the tools to, again, get back out there and get back faster, continue to move. Cryotherapy, give me an example. Saunas, you talk about saunas enough on this show. I certainly won't go into that, but I think the data on saunas is undeniable, which we call heat therapy. And there's more to saunas than just heat therapy for sure. But hyperbaric oxygen therapy, I think the data on that is becoming more compelling by the day. If you have dementia in your genes, and a lot of us do, myself included, the data is really compelling on hyperbarics and oxygen therapy. Every single metabolic process in your body requires oxygen. The more oxygen you get into those processes, the better off you're going to be. And then there's hydration, not surprising. Besides oxygen, water's kind of the next thing. Your body is a high percentage of water. Your muscles, your brain are like 75% water. And making sure those have the proper hydration is important. But for us, IVs also allow you to deliver the next one, which is nutrients. Certainly, nutrients are in a lot of different ways people get nutrients. But the reality is, as you get older, your digestive system changes and your absorption rates change. And just like taking a multivitamin when you're 8 years old, you're going to get pretty different absorption than when you're 78 years old. So hydration is a big portion of what we try to help people with. I'm somebody that I do biomarker testing. The reason I'm not deficient in things, I look at what I'm deficient in, and I try to add those back into my diet, but I also add them back in an IV. And I'll tell you, since, when I have 4 kids, and when I never got sick when I was younger, and I had kids, and kids are Petri dishes, and they bring home every disease. So I used to, in my 30s, I would get sick pretty consistently. The kids would bring home something. Now, as soon as I feel, hey, something's not quite right, I go get a high dose vitamin C, I get hydrated, and I have hardly been, other than I got COVID once, I don't think I've been sick in the last decade, or very, very few times, I should say. I think it's because I've been proactive when I start feeling things. There's other things that are elements that we, you don't do in a Restore location, things like movement. And I would argue, one of the most important thing to see if somebody's going to age well is movement. You got to keep moving. You got to keep moving the body. It's meant, our bodies were engineered to be moved. And then last is community. I think, it is pretty compelling data that shows you need community in life. You need connection in life. Where that matters is not just, you need those relationships, but I talk a lot about this, which I think it's having people in your life that share common interests. The data, for example, if you're around smokers and you have friends that are smokers, you're going to smoke. If you have friends that exercise, you're going to more likely exercise. So finding people that share those common values, and health being one of those really important ones, I think is really important. One of the interesting things in our studios is they are communities, and people tend to go there to find other people that are passionate about the things that they do.
Yes. Yeah. And I love that you can go to a Restore and you can find other people that are interested in their health and getting healthy. It's very important to surround yourself with people, like-minded people like that. And, with the also, I think there's a lot of things that I would love for my audience to be doing at home and have the equipment every day, like, doing an infrared sauna and doing other things, but it's just not, it's not feasible for a lot of people.
We're not all LeBron James. LeBron James has all of the house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, we need these things. People need to be doing infrared saunas. The data is so compelling where, There was the study done in Finland where they had a 40% reduction in all-cause mortality from using just a regular sauna, not even an infrared sauna, which you have more toxins, more productive sweat from doing an infrared sauna. And so it's just really compelling. If that's doing a sauna 5 days a week, but even 3 days a week has a 25% reduction in all-cause mortality. Those are huge numbers. Huge. This is a 25-year study that was done. And so just sauna alone, and not to mention, doing oxygen therapy, our mitochondria that make our body's energy run on oxygen. That's the main fuel that they need. So I think doing oxygen therapy is so key. And there's so many different components that people need for their health to optimize their health, especially if they feel like they're behind the 8 ball. Like maybe they haven't had the best diet or haven't taken care of themselves or spent the majority of their lives really abusing their bodies. You can play some catch up with instituting some of these therapies on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, what's nice about Restore, and one of the reasons I think we have been so successful is you feel better. Come in feeling one way, you leave feeling better. And that creates this, the feedback loop that's needed. Human beings are pretty terrible at making decisions today. They're going to affect them 20 years from now. They're actually really good at making decisions today that are going to affect them today. And I think one of the reasons we've been so successful as a business is you do cryotherapy, you feel it. And that, all right, well, that works. Therefore, I'm going to come back and do that again. It gets them in the right mindset. It gets them to invest in their health. One of the challenges for a lot of people is when you start exercising for the first time, if you've not exercised for a decade, okay, and you start exercising, it's pretty painful early on. It's really tough. And helping people overcome those early aches and pains really can help keep them on that path that is so important, because there's no one thing health is not one thing. It's not one thing for an individual. It's certainly not one thing for society. It is all of these things. It's movement. It's continuing to make sure we eat, and nutrition and oxygen, and all of these things have to work together.
Yes, absolutely. And so if someone's looking to kind of start their health journey, maybe they haven't tried any of these therapies before, where can people begin?
So first of all, I think in Restore, I go to restore.com. Hopefully there's a Restore note close to you. And if there's not, we have a book coming out in about a month called Restore. It's not just about the studios. In fact, there's a significant portion of things you can do in your home, things you should be doing in your home, biohacks, if you will, to improve your health. But I think that it all starts with, if you're gonna change your health, you have to start with what is your goal. And I think this is the problem. People often, and it's not just in health, but in a lot of things, when they're trying to make changes in life, they struggle with getting started. Once you get started, once you get on a plan, it actually gets quite easy. But it's that first step that is almost always the hardest for people. I think one thing we do really well at the studios is help people understand that, hey, I want to improve my health. What can I do? And helps get them, all right, great. What are you trying to accomplish? And then builds a plan with them from there. And that plan exists in the studio for sure, but it is many things that are far outside the studio.
And so what are some of the latest improvements and like innovations in the health and wellness realm? So what are some is there anything new that you're kind of cutting edge you have at Restore, new things that you're going to be introducing soon?
Well, we keep, behind the wall. I mean, right now there are people going through a clinical trial for 2 different new products that we're looking at. So but we keep those under wraps until they're ready to go, until we have results back. The area that
you can tell me.
No, it's just you and I, right? Yeah, nobody will hear. We've partnered with Aura. I don't know if you're with the Aura ring.
Yes.
Yes. And, one of the elements is rest. The reality is, rest is pretty darn critical. In fact, the CEO of Aura kind of describes what rest gives and says, what if I could give you a drug? If you could take a pill to do all these things? And the answer is, oh yeah, that pill is sleep more, sleep better.
Sleep. Oh, that's
that minor thing called sleep. So, we partner with them. All of our clinical trials are running through that. So you can see not just how these therapies affect sleep, and that's important, but also heart rate variability, resting heart rate. And again, what we're being able to show is multiple therapies. It's not just one therapy. It's the multiple therapies used in conjunction together is really what drives results. We're very data driven as an organization. And I think what will be interesting is a decade from now, I think we'll have more compelling data. And certainly Apple's going to have more data than everybody, and Google as well. But I think what we'll have is that data that's really tied to individual therapies and, with the understanding what people are trying to accomplish. So we, a lot of our studios have an in-body machine if they have what's called weight management program. So weight management for us, you'll notice I didn't call it weight loss. The reality is, I think the GLP-1s, they have a place in the society. I think they're bringing a lot of value, but there is some downside to them, which is you can burn actually muscle mass. Okay. Burning fat, especially visceral fat, is good. You want to reduce that, but you absolutely do not want to reduce muscle.
Or that pesky thing with your stomach getting paralyzed. Like, let's not mention that.
So our chief, one of our head scientists, one of our favorite quotes she has is, "Muscle is the longevity drug," and I think that is so true. So our weight management program looks at not just weight loss but also muscle gain. So we're weekly. You're with a nurse practitioner that's talking you through, hey, these are things you can do on your diet, on exercise. We're measuring not just weights. We're measuring weight body composition. So body fat and where that body fat is. Obviously, you and I both know visceral fat, the fat around the organs, is very different than fat in other parts of the body. And then we're also measuring muscle mass. So we make sure that a person is losing weight, which often is a very good thing, but they're also adding muscle or not losing muscle in that process. And again, we now have clinical data that shows that we're achieving pretty amazing results for the client. And it is not one thing. It's a good example. Again, the idea of getting a shot to solve any problem is probably not a great answer. It is, that can be a part of it for sure, but it's how you can put those things in conjunction with other tools that are in the toolkit.
Yeah. And I love the thought of going to a restorer center and, stacking all these things, like doing your infrared sauna and then detoxing and activating your parasympathetic nervous system, relaxing, and then going in and doing the cryo and getting totally relaxed and then getting some oxygen. I don't know how many you can do in a day, but it's just great that you can go to one place and do all of these different things. So do you have like a membership or do you sign up for each one individually? Like, how does it work exactly?
Yeah, you can sign up for everyone individually, but we're membership based. People usually come, they buy a membership because, again, I'll tell you, most of these things doing it one time is not going to have a huge impact. Doing a sauna one time, great. That's you shouldn't discourage that, but you're not going to change the outcome of your life going and doing a sauna one time. So again, for us, hyper wellness is that consistent, okay, very specific word, consistent. You have to be committed to these things and passionate pursuit to maximize your health. That requires you to commit time. It requires you that's one of the biggest challenges for people is, all right, especially in the kind of the mid parts, the years when your health starts to decline is also the years when you probably have the most demands at work, probably the most demands at family. So it gets really hard to commit that time. I think one of the things that the membership actually does is it's kind of you're saying to yourself, hey, I'm committed to doing this. This is important to me. I'm making this investment. And because of that, I'm going to continue and I'm going to get on this wellness plan that I work with my wellness rep at the studio to guide me down my journey. So it is membership based, but you can come in. Anybody's welcome. And one of the most fun parts is I often go and just sit in studios in different places and just the conversations that people have, because we're very open. It's, there's some private rooms if you choose, but a lot of what we do is out in the open, very different than a doctor's office. And it is amazing how people share their own experiences. This works for them. This doesn't work for them. Hey, I'm getting NAD. Why are you getting NAD? And you get that dialogue of clients, and they learn from each other, which is just such a nice thing in the community.
Yeah. And it just, to me, it just sounds like really resonates with like everything that I talk about, with everything that I recommend that people do. You offered that at Restore, which is just so fantastic, because like I said, I think people have limited resources, and even just the sauna alone, just going there for that is so worth it. I mean, I know I used to pay like $50 a session to go to do an infrared sauna or more. That was like 15 years ago. But I think it's just great that there are is this a franchise or is it
we are a franchise. We have corporate studios, but we're also a franchise model. And you hit on something that was really important to Jim and I from the start, which was to really make it more accessible. And cryotherapy when we started was, at $85 a session. And that's just there's too few people in this world that can afford that.
Yeah.
So we drove that down. It's under, if you're a member, if you're certain memberships, it could be almost as low as $10 a day. But you call it, in the $25 to $30 range. Manhattan's a little bit different. Got to watch how I say that. And then, same thing with saunas. Hyperbarics, almost every hospital in this country has a hyperbaric chamber.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like that is unique. However, the cost, even with insurance, is pretty significant. We've really tried to bring that cost down and make it way more accessible to the consumers.
Oh, those are like $200 a pop. Like typically, like some places you can go to, it's $200 per session just to do the hyperbaric oxygen. And all these are so important. Not only, I mean, certainly there's a lot of like super health conscious people going there. But if you have a chronic illness and you are just not making any progress, like you're going to your conventional doctor and you are not seeing improvements, you're not kind of meeting your health goals or even improving, you need to be thinking about going to a place like Restore, essentially to restore your health, and add some therapies. These are, research proven therapies that can dramatically help you improve your health status and meet your health goals.
Yeah, when Jim and I started, interesting, we actually thought the market was going to be kind of the semi-professional athlete, the person that was really focused on athletic performance. It turns out that's pretty small. It is the majority of people are people that are ordinary people that are just struggling with loss of energy that happens as they age, and has aches and pains. And a lot of them have chronic conditions. I mean, take rheumatoid arthritis. Obviously we have a number of biological drugs out there that help with rheumatoid arthritis. They're expensive, number one, very expensive. And number two, I think there's concern. All right, these drugs work. What happens when I'm on them for 40 years versus, cold therapy is tried and true. Some of the oldest known texts of man talked about cryotherapy. The Hippocratic School of Medicine and, 1000 BC talked about cold therapy. So these things are proven over long periods of time. And again, they stimulate the body's natural defense as opposed to putting something there that's, the body doesn't have, which is what a lot of the other drugs, certainly small molecule drugs on the market have or are.
Yeah. And then also when you are certainly, a lot of professional athletes are using all of these different modalities for quick recovery, to reduce stress and all the, like stresses that they have on their body physically. But like I said, these things are great for recovery. Like for me, I had a weightlifting injury because I'm such an athlete, and I was just lifting weights and hurt my shoulder. It's been a chronic injury for a long time, almost 2 decades. And I went and did cryotherapy, and it didn't hurt for 3 weeks. It had been hurting every day for months, really, until I went to go do cryotherapy. And, I didn't love my 2 minutes in the cryotherapy session. It's a kind of, it's excruciating, but I didn't have any pain for 3 weeks. I couldn't believe it. The amount of inflammation that was dramatically reduced in my body in 2 minutes had 3 weeks lasting effects. I was very, very impressed by that.
No, it's remarkable. I to this day, I'm amazed when I go and I have my back hurts and I go and I'm like, all right, that solves the problem. Thank you. And I agree with you, by the way. I don't like colds, but getting rid of pain, I will take the cold any day of the week.
Yeah. That 2 minutes of pain is better than chronic pain.
We'll be 3 minutes if you go to a Restore location.
Okay, 3 minutes. Okay, great. I just wanted 2 minutes. I think they said you could do 2 or 3 minutes. I'm like,
you can go as short as you want. Yeah. Sorry. We won't make you go 3. Don't worry about that. But if you want to go 2, you can go 2.
Yeah, I think that was it was just starting at this, the first places in LA that had cryotherapy. So maybe they didn't have their protocols down. But what are some of the other things? Like what kinds of IV therapy and things that you offer there at Restore?
Yeah, for IV, it's mainly different ingredients. And again, this is where everybody is different. I think the other thing that I think people should do is get a baseline as early in life as they can. And that baseline, should be everything from micronutrient levels to, your basic blood panel and metabolic panel. You should have, again, wearables so that understand where you are. My run, I use a product called Runkeeper, and I can go back and look at, how fast was I running at this point 17 years ago. And it's just amazing to have that data to see how things change over time. I think, the advantage of getting the baseline is later in life, all right, was this really a problem? A lot of things is, maybe it's been there for a long time. It's not an issue. By getting some of these things, getting the baseline when you're younger really helps you prepare when you do start to have problems and start to age. So we do a lot of blood testing as an area of our business. We're really focusing on expanding. We think there's more and more of those tests that are getting out there. They're getting lower in cost, much more effective and much broader, and then being able to help, clients understand what's going on inside their body.
Yeah, I think it's great to get some blood markers, some biomarkers, and kind of get your baseline and see what you're doing is working and kind of, do all that testing. It's great. So what kinds of testing are you doing? Because I know for a lot of people, there are certain things they want to test that's not covered by their insurance, or their doctor doesn't see a medical reason for it. But they still want to test, guys want to test their testosterone and even young guys, I think there's an epidemic people with low testosterone levels because of all the estrogenic chemicals, in our environment, the plastics and the pesticides, et cetera, and the stress that our bodies are under, I think there's a major problem with testosterone levels, which a lot of the modalities that you offer at Restore can help tremendously with raising testosterone and balancing people's hormones in general.
I think the food supply is a major issue. There's no question about it. I think it manifests itself in so many different ways inside our body that we just don't see. I grew up a little before the generation. I was at the beginning of everything being processed. But our parents, there was no such thing as health food. There was just food. Like food was for the most part healthy. By the time we came around, I was born in '76. Almost everything was starting to be processed at that point. So we just grew up, and I think that's why you're seeing the rates of cancer go up. You're seeing the body just was not engineered to have this much processed food, and we don't get the nutrients that we need. So yeah, we are 100% aligned on that. And I think the good news is I think people are aware of it for the first time, and people are investing. I mean, the health food market is a real market now where people are investing in their health. I think that's been a huge benefit to society. We're moving in the right direction. At least power, the information is power. And I think people now understand things at a level that just didn't even just a couple of decades ago. If you go back and look at survey data on healthcare, what's really interesting is 20 years ago, if you ask open-ended questions about healthcare, the consumer would say doctor, hospital, pharmaceutical. Those are the three. If you had a word cloud, if you will, those are the three things that pop up above everything else. About a decade ago, you started to see things slip into that word cloud like nutrition and exercise and preventative medicine. And again, this is where we saw the market was kind of moving in a different direction than the traditional system. Because the traditional system, again, we've got to make sure I stress this. I think our system is amazing once you're sick, but there's almost nothing in that system that says, all right, well, here's how to make sure you eat healthy. I mean, there's very few doctors out there that even think about that on a daily basis. I think the good news is now, again, consumers have more information. There are places like Restore where popping up where you can get that information and focus on what matters and what's going to keep you healthy as opposed to what's going to help you once you're sick.
Yes. Yeah. And I love doctors. I don't mean to, I think I do a lot of doctor bashing on my show, and I don't mean to, just you doctors out there love the emergency medicine. That's where I want to go if I get into a car wreck. But some of the chronic illness management really is, wanting, there's a lot of issues with chronic illness and management of chronic disease that definitely needs looking at again.
Well,
it needs an audit.
It's easier just to say to somebody, take a pill, and it's easier for that person to take a pill.
And a lot of people want that, know.
Yeah. So, but I think the challenge is, all right, well, that is one option. And by the way, that option is really easy to test. I mean, again, I think the pharmaceutical industry has done an amazing job of showing a double-blind study. And double-blind studies have a lot of advantage to them because you can do a double-blind study on almost any pill, I should say, or any injection. It's impossible to do a double-blind study on cryotherapy, for example. And because of that, the industry has viewed studies that don't use the double-blind standard as less valuable. And I think that's one of the challenges society has to overcome. Is all right, yes, this is one form of the one way we're going to test, but there's other things we can look at here to make sure that there's evidence that these things work. And I'll be the first to say, I think in the health and wellness, there's tons of BS. There's tons out there that are not backed by science. One of the things we have focused so much on as an organization is being truth tellers. Hey, there may not be evidence for this. This doesn't mean don't do it, by the way, okay? Because I think absence of evidence does not mean that something doesn't work. But what we're trying to do is also then add that evidence over time as we get more people to use these products and services.
Yes. Well, what's next for Restore Hyper Wellness? So what do you guys have on the horizon?
That's what everybody's asking these days. We're really focused on what we're calling performance medicine. And for us, this is getting much deeper understanding of the client, deeper in the blood work, on wearables, and on the in-bodies so that we can really see how a client is moving forward. And number one, set their goals. Hey, here's what I'm trying to accomplish, and then track their ability to meet those goals over time and see the outcomes. And, I think that is the area wellness has really failed in, is being able to show people the change of outcomes. People feel it. So I think and that's important, don't get me wrong. But I do think there's this thing, hey, I'll take Aura, which I think very highly of. Like, I've done things where I've changed my daily schedule that has clearly impacted my sleeping to the positive.
What have you done?
I see that.
Tell us.
I put my phone away much earlier. I don't My phone goes away. My phone goes away at 5 o'clock when I get home, or whenever I get home. Unfortunately, right now it's not 5, but it should be 5 when I get 5, because I don't have the phone when I'm with the family. I think it's actually, I think the phone is incredibly destructive to society, although it's created a lot of good. So I put the phone away, and once the kids go to bed, I take it out, but I will put it away again probably about 9 o'clock. I try to go to bed by 10:30. And for me, that is a huge difference. If I read on my phone until the time I go to bed, my latency, the amount of time it takes me to go to sleep, it's at least a half hour, often much more, versus 10, 15 minutes when I stop using the phone. And I did that test. I saw that in the data. It was the data. I knew it right away, by the way, but it was the seeing it that allowed me to reinforce that. It made me keep doing that. Made the habit become habitual. Made it become habitual, I should say.
Yeah, the Aura Ring is so key. And I have software that I use called Chi Fractal software that's very, 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 very complex and very accurate. Testing before and after of things I do as well. But the Aura Ring is an amazing tool, I think, for the majority of people. They can be using to track what they're doing, and the evidence, the proof is in the pudding. That evidence helps people make changes. And so you were also saying what's next for Hyper Wellness, before I interrupted you about your
So
schedule.
I took us off on a tangent, my mistake. So it is getting that deeper relationship with a client and understanding and giving them the tools to see how to change. I think the things we're doing in the studio right now have a huge impact on people's lives. It's trying to bring that more to life and getting it deeper. Testing is a big part of where we're making investments as an organization. So we continue to build out studios. Our goal is really for any studio, for people look back, and people often ask, what do I consider success? People look back and say, when a restore location was in a community, that community was healthier. And because of that, people want us in our community because we'll drive down, we'll actually make it a better community, a healthier community. I think when we see that, and our franchise owners, we have amazing owners that do it. So many of the there's a lot of franchises out there. There's a lot of ways you can invest your time, energy, money. What I think is unique about a restore location is you really see the impact on your community. You see every day you're changing people's lives, and that is very rewarding. And so many of our owners, our franchisees, that's what gets them up every day. That's why they're excited to go to work every day, is because they see the impact they're having on their clients' lives. And there's not many businesses out there that you can do that. You can't do that in self-storage. You can't do that in vending machines.
Those are the high dollar. People make a lot of money with self-storage and vending machines, for sure.
Yes, that's right.
Laundromats.
There's a lot of ways to make money in this world. I think what I've been proud of my own career is I've always picked areas that I was passionate about, and then I thought that brought value to society above and beyond just the financial return. So another company I had was a company called Kindertown, which is 100% focused on education. So my wife and I, from a philanthropic standpoint, the only thing we invest in is actually education, because I think that's the root cause of all the bad in the world. I'd argue is education, and the root cause of all the good is actually good education. So we're very focused on that.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. Yeah. And so anyone listening, all you health nuts out there, they're looking for perhaps going deeper into your hobby, you can get a Restore franchise, and because you guys are franchising, and I think that's a great way to kind of go full time into your hobby, like I did, like over 10 years ago.
Awesome. Well, please check out restore.com. And if you're interested in these therapies, Jim and I wrote a book that I think is excellent. I'll self-promote shamelessly here. It's out in May. You can pre-order it on Amazon. It's called Restore. And we hope you pick it up and enjoy it. It's a quick read. It's indexed. If you have a specific area, you're like, hey, I don't want to read 300 pages. but I'm really concerned because I have rheumatoid arthritis. You can go and see all the sections that talks about rheumatoid arthritis, what's working. So we really tried to make it, we're aware that reading books cover to cover is getting more and more rare in this world. So we tried to make it as easy as possible for somebody to pick up and really get value out of. It's on Amazon, Restore, and I think the release date's in mid-May. Okay,
fantastic. Well, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to the Myers Detox podcast. And Steve, thank you so much for joining us. And I love what you're doing. I love that you have 230 wellness centers that people can go to experience these healing modalities that people might otherwise not have access to in a really affordable way. So I love that you're doing this. So thank you so much for coming on and telling us about it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes. And everyone, I'm Dr. Wendy Myers. Thanks for tuning in every week to the Myers Detox podcast. I look forward to many, many more shows. I think we hit on show number 530. I've been doing this for over 10 years. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in every week. I've got so many amazing shows for you coming up in the next, actually just next couple months, recording a lot of really, really interesting shows. So keep tuning in. I have a lot of new things coming out for you guys soon. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys next week.
The Myers Detox Podcast is created and hosted by Wendy Myers. This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Wendy Myers and the producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.